30 cameras were pointed at me when a woman in a white dress slapped me across the face. My older brother had one hand twisted in my collar. 2 police officers were pushing through the ballroom crowd. Someone was screaming that I had drugged her. And then I saw myself die behind a motel. Rain hit my face. Blood filled my mouth. A man I could not see stepped over my body. Then the vision vanished. I was back under crystal lights with my cheek burning. For several seconds, nobody moved. That included me. Not because I was guilty, because I had been alive in this body for maybe 12 seconds. I knew 3 things. 1, my name was apparently Lucian Blackwood. 2, Lucian Blackwood was the spoiled billionaire villain from a romance novel I remembered far too well. 3, according to that novel, I was supposed to lose everything and die alone. 12 seconds earlier, I had been Adrian Cole, 29, a risk analyst who spent his days finding ways plans could fail, and his nights beating strategy games. Then I died. No heroic sacrifice, no useful warning. One moment I was home, the next, I was inside the body of a romance novel's favorite punching bag. I had no idea why. The police officer reached me. "Mr. Blackwood, don't move." That seemed like good advice. The woman who had slapped me pointed at the champagne glass in my hand. He put something in my drink. I sought him. My brother Nathan tightened his grip on my collar. He looked exactly like the kind of man a romance novel would call the perfect heir. Tall, broad shoulders, dark hair, expensive black suit. He even had the kind of face that could make disappointment look professional. Right now, every bit of that disappointment was aimed at me. "Tell me she's lying," he said. I opened my mouth. The world went quiet. Color drained from the edges of my sight. A thought appeared in my mind, as naturally as breathing. If I apologize? The ballroom vanished. I saw handcuffs around my wrists. I saw police finding a small silver vial inside my jacket. I saw Nathan staring at me like something inside him had finally died.
Outcome: arrest.
The ballroom snapped back. My heart kicked once. That was new. I tried again. If I pull away and run? A parking garage. My shoes hitting wet concrete. A gunshot. My body folding beside a black car.
Outcome: shot.
Back again. The officer was now close enough to reach for my wrist. So the strange power was real. One clear choice gave me one possible future. I needed a name for it. Outcome sight worked well enough. Apparently, waking up as a doomed rich villain came with one unfair advantage. I looked around the room. Servers, guests, security, cameras. The woman in white was crying, but not very well. Her eyes kept moving toward the bar, toward a bartender with a neat black vest and a face that was trying too hard to look blank. If I tell them to check the bartender's left sleeve? The future flashed. The bartender froze. His hand went to his cuff. Then he ran.
Outcome: target runs.
I almost smiled. Instead, I lifted both hands slowly so the police could see them. "Before you search me," I said, "check the bartender's left sleeve." The bartender went white. Nathan's eyes flicked toward him. The officer turned. The bartender ran. A woman screamed as he shoved through the crowd. A tray of glasses crashed to the floor. For one beautiful second, the entire ballroom forgot I existed. I slipped Nathan's hand off my collar. "You can yell at me later." Then I ran after the bartender. "Lucian," Nathan shouted. I ignored him. The ballroom doors burst open ahead of the bartender. He disappeared into a service hall behind the kitchens. I reached the broken glass first. If I go through the center? A server fell into me. I lost 6 seconds. A security guard blocked me. If I go left? I saw a narrow path between 2 tables, then a white service door swinging shut. I went left. My shoulder brushed a guest. My shoe hit champagne. I caught myself on the edge of a table and kept moving. The white door was already closing when I reached it. I hit it with my shoulder. The kitchen exploded around me in heat and noise. Chef shouted. Pans hissed. Someone dropped a spoon. The bartender was 20 feet ahead, cutting between stainless steel counters. He looked back. That was his mistake. I asked the power one simple question. If I chase him straight? He reached the loading dock. I saw him slam through a gray door, then appear in front of me at the end of a narrow hall. Good enough. I turned hard, nearly slid into a rack of plates, and shoved through the prep room. A cook cursed at me. Sorry, that came out automatically. The cook stared after me, probably because Lucian Blackwood apologizing was more shocking than the chase. I hit the narrow hall at full speed. The bartender came through the gray door exactly where I had seen him. His eyes widened. How the hell? I planted one foot and drove my shoulder into his chest. We hit the wall together. His elbow caught my jaw. Pain flashed bright behind my eyes. He shoved me off and swung again. If I duck, His fist passed over my head. If I stepped back, his knuckles broke my nose. I ducked. His fist hit the wall. He screamed. I grabbed his wrist. He twisted free and reached into his jacket. Knife? Gun? I did not wait to learn. If I grab his left arm, blade across my stomach. If I kick his knee, he fell sideways. I kicked his knee. Something popped. He crashed into a glass-fronted cabinet. The glass shattered under his shoulder. I raised my hands to protect my face. A shard cut across my right palm. Hot blood ran down my wrist. The bartender hit the floor hard. A small silver vial rolled from inside his sleeve. It clicked once against the white tile, then stopped beside my bloody hand. For half a second, neither of us moved. I looked at the vial. He looked at the vial. That seems inconvenient, I said. Security flooded the hall. Nathan arrived right behind them. He took in the scene in one sweep. Me, bleeding. The bartender on the floor. The silver vial. His face changed. Not trust, not yet. But the anger cracked. One of the police officers crouched and pulled on gloves. Nobody touched that. The bartender started talking too quickly. He planted it. He attacked me. I watched it fall from your sleeve, Nathan said. His voice was flat. The bartender stopped. The woman from the ballroom had followed more slowly with another officer. Her face had lost most of its color. She stared at the vial. That's the same one, she whispered. Every head turned toward her. She swallowed. The man who spoke to me said Lucian would have one exactly like that. He said the police would find it on him. Nathan looked at me. I looked back. That was when the first real fear hit me. Not because I had almost been arrested, because whoever had planned this knew exactly what Lucian Blackwood was supposed to do. Lose his temper. Threaten a woman. Run. Get caught with planted drugs. The trap had been built around the old Lucian, and I had broken it in less than 5 minutes. That was when the fear changed. I was still in danger, but now the danger had rules. Some part of my brain, the same part that loved finding one weak point in an impossible strategy game, woke up smiling. If somebody wanted Lucian Blackwood to follow a script, they had picked the wrong man to improvise against. The police separated us. Statements began. Phones came out. Security pulled camera footage. I let them work. The more people moved, the more I noticed the pressure behind my eyes. Using the visions 4, 5, 6 times in quick order felt like a thumb pressing behind my skull. Useful information. I would complain later. For now, I had survived my first scripted disaster. The problem was that somebody had written it for me. An hour later, the gala was basically over. Guests had either left or gathered in small groups to whisper about me. The police kept the bartender. The woman who accused me, Serena Holt, had admitted that an unknown man paid her to start a public scene. She claimed she never knew anyone planned to actually drug her drink. Maybe she was telling the truth. I could have tested it. If I accuse her of lying? I stopped myself. My head already hurt, and there were too many people around. Short futures were clear. Crowded ones already felt dirty, like looking through cracked glass. I needed rules before I turned my own brain into soup. I escaped through a side door onto a balcony overlooking the city. Cold air hit my face. I breathed in slowly. That was when my hands started shaking. It annoyed me. I had been calm while a man tried to frame me for a crime. I had been calm while chasing him through a hotel. Now that nobody was trying to kill me, my body decided to become dramatic. You always did have bad timing. A woman's voice came from behind me. Evelyn Laurent stood by the balcony door. I knew her before I remembered why. Auburn hair fell over one shoulder. Green eyes. An ivory evening dress that made her stand out against the dark balcony. Tall, elegant, controlled. In the novel I remembered, Evelyn Laurent had been called cold, proud, difficult, ambitious, and eventually dangerous. From what I could tell, most of that meant she had opinions and refused to smile on command. She was also supposed to die. 6 months after me. That memory arrived like a knife sliding between my ribs. I stared at her, 1 second too long. Evelyn lifted one eyebrow. Do I have blood on my face? No. Then stop looking at me like that. I almost asked what happened if I told her the truth. The world began to pale at the edges. I cut the thought off. Not yet. Long night, I said. You were accused of drugging a woman, chased a bartender through a kitchen, and tackled him into a cabinet. She stepped closer. That's one way to describe it. Is there a better one? The catering was disappointing. Her mouth moved slightly. Almost a smile. Then her eyes dropped to my hand. Blood had soaked through the temporary bandage. You're still bleeding. Apparently rich people use very sharp glass. She ignored that and came closer. Close enough that I caught a light scent of cedar and something floral. Her fingers touched the edge of my cuff. Not my hand, just the fabric near it. You're shaking. I looked down. Annoying, still true. Adrenaline. Her eyes stayed on mine. There was something unsettling about Evelyn. She was not looking at me like a stranger. She was looking at me like a puzzle she had already seen once before. You really don't remember, she said quietly. My body went still. Remember what? Hotel Belmont, room 1708. The name hit something buried inside Lucian's mind. Pain flashed behind my eyes. Not outcome sight. Memory. A hotel hallway. I was younger, 17 maybe. Evelyn was there too. Younger but unmistakable, crying so hard she could barely speak. A boy lay half-conscious on a sofa inside a hotel room. Maybe 15. Pills on the carpet. Blood under his nose. Voices outside. Photographers. Someone shouting that the Laurent heir was in the room. A younger Lucian grabbed Evelyn's shoulders. Take him for the service hall. They'll see us. No, they won't. Lucian, trust me once. Then the memory jumped. Lucian stumbling through the hotel lobby alone 20 minutes later. Shirt open, bottle in hand, shouting at a photographer, knocking over a velvet rope. Every camera turned toward him. The headlines the next morning were about Lucian Blackwood's drunken breakdown. Not Evelyn Laurent's younger brother, overdosing in a private hotel room. The memory released me. I gripped the balcony rail. Evelyn's fingers tightened on my cuff. There, she said softly. You remembered something. I looked at her. Your brother. Her face changed, only slightly, but enough. Julian was sick, she said. He wasn't some party addict. He had been taking pain medicine after surgery. He mixed the wrong things. If those pictures had come out, my father would have buried him under shame before the doctors could help him. I said nothing. This scene had never existed in the novel, not even as a rumor. Evelyn looked toward the city. You made yourself the story. Everyone followed you. You never told anyone why. Why would Lucian do that? The question came out before I could stop it. Her eyes snapped back to mine. Too strange. I corrected quickly. Why would I do that? She studied me for a long moment. That's what I asked you the next day. And? You told me my brother looked scared enough already. Her voice softened. Then you said you were used to people thinking the worst of you. That one hurt more than I expected. Because I could feel the truth of it in the body I was wearing. Not as a thought. Old anger in the chest. Old shame. The reflex to laugh first, so nobody else could. The original Lucian had done terrible things. I had memories of enough of them to know that. But he had been more than the villain the book remembered. That mattered. Evelyn let go of my cuff. So when Serena said you drugged her, I didn't believe her immediately. That's a very low standard for trust. Don't get excited. I still believe there was a decent chance you had done something stupid nearby. I looked at her. She looked back. There it is, I said. What? The warmth. I was worried the rumors were unfair. They are not. One clean hit. I respected it. The balcony door opened behind her. His eyes moved from Evelyn to me, then to her hand, which was still close to my sleeve. He did not react to that, but I noticed. Father wants everyone home, he said. Now. That sounds relaxing. Lucian. The warning in his voice was familiar, even though I had only known him for an hour. I straightened. Evelyn moved toward the door, then stopped beside me. One more thing. What? Her green eyes held mine. Whoever planned tonight knew exactly how you used to react. I felt the pressure behind my eyes again. This time, I did not need the power. I know. Evelyn gave one small nod. Then she left. Nathan stayed. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he looked at my bandaged hand. You could have stayed in the ballroom and let security handle it. He would have reached the loading dock. Nathan's eyes narrowed. How do you know? I met his stare. That was going to become a very common question. Lucky guess. Nathan looked toward the service hall behind us. You made about 6 lucky guesses in 3 minutes. I slid my hands into my pockets. Strong evening. He did not smile, but he almost did. The Blackwood estate looked less like a home and more like someone had given a bank a garden. Stone walls, black iron gates, long windows glowing warm against the night. A driveway large enough to land something expensive on. The second I stepped through the front doors, memories began filling in the spaces around me. The stairs on the right led to my room. The hall on the left led to Charles Blackwood's study. The sitting room ahead was where Lucian had once thrown a whiskey glass hard enough to crack a painting frame. That memory was not flattering. Neither was the one where he had screamed at Margaret because she canceled his credit card after a 3-day binge. I rubbed the bridge of my nose. The original Lucian had not been secretly perfect. Good. I did not want a magic excuse that erased what he had done. I wanted to know why he had become so easy to push and who had kept pushing. Everyone was waiting in the family room. Charles Blackwood stood near the fireplace with one hand in his pocket. Silver touched his dark hair at the temples. His face was built for boardrooms and disappointing enemies. Margaret sat on the sofa, still wearing her gala dress. Chloe was beside her, one heel already off, scrolling through her phone with the speed of someone watching a disaster become public in real time. Nathan stood near the window, and Gideon Vale sat in an armchair as if he belonged there. That name hit me harder than the room. Gideon, vice chairman of Blackwood Group, Charles's oldest friend. Nathan and Chloe had called him Uncle Gideon since they were children. In the novel, he was barely important, a calm older executive who appeared at family events and gave Nathan advice. The kind of character nobody remembered after finishing the book. He smiled when I entered. There he is, gentle voice, silver hair, warm eyes, perfect uncle energy. I immediately disliked him. Because, in my experience, anyone that comfortable in a room full of angry rich people either owned the room or knew where the bodies were. Charles pointed at a chair. Sit. I sat. No one spoke for several seconds. Then Chloe turned her phone toward me. My face was everywhere. One clip showed Serena slapping me. Another showed me running through the ballroom. A third showed security dragging the bartender back in handcuffs.
Blackwood bad boy targeted in bizarre gala drug plot.
They managed to accuse me and defend me in the same headline. Impressive. Chloe stared at me. You were almost arrested 3 hours ago. I noticed, and somehow you're calmer than when the chef used the wrong mustard last month. Another memory surfaced. I had once screamed at a chef for using the wrong mustard. Wonderful. Maybe I've grown. In 3 hours? Very efficient. Margaret closed her eyes briefly, but I saw the edge of a tired smile disappear. Charles did not smile. This is not funny. The room settled immediately. The bartender admitted someone paid him. Charles continued. He claims he never saw the man's face. Serena says the same. Hotel security is reviewing every camera. And someone knew enough about Lucian to plant the vial where police would expect to find it. I had used my own name in third person again. I needed to stop doing that. Nathan saved me by speaking first. Dorian Price was at the gala. The name pulled another set of memories forward. Dorian laughing beside me in nightclubs. Dorian handing me pills. Dorian whispering that Nathan had called me a charity project. Dorian telling me Claire Bennett thought I was pathetic. Dorian always there when I was angry, always feeding it. I felt a cold certainty settle in my stomach. There was our first obvious suspect. I could accuse him now. The edges of my vision faded. If I say Dorian did it? A flash. Dorian's apartment empty. A laptop burning in a metal sink. A man removing hard drives from a private office.
Outcome. Evidence lost.
I blinked. Lucian? Margaret asked. I realized everyone was watching me. I leaned back. Dorian knows half the city. That doesn't make him guilty. Nathan frowned. He had expected me to attack the name. Good. So had somebody else. Gideon folded his hands over one knee. That's unusually patient of you. I looked at him. I'm experimenting. His smile remained. With patience? Apparently. Then perhaps tonight did some good after all. His tone was kind. My skin still prickled. Charles walked toward the window. Security will be doubled. Your driver stays with you. Nathan will review your recent contacts. No. Charles turned. The room tightened. I had apparently chosen the wrong word. So I added the useful part. Review the contacts if you want, but don't lock me in the house. Whoever did this already expects me to panic. If I disappear, they adjust. Nathan watched me more carefully. You want to stay visible. I want them to think tonight failed because of luck. The statement came out before I could simplify it. Chloe lowered her phone. And was it? I looked at her. Was what luck? Knowing about the bartender. The room went quiet again. I could lie. I wasn't sure I could lie well to 5 people who had spent years watching this face. I saw him watching Serena, I said. Then he touched his sleeve when the police came closer. That part was true. It just hadn't been enough on its own. Nathan's eyes stayed on me. He did not believe it fully. He also could not prove anything else. I expected a question. Instead, she took my injured hand carefully. Her fingers were warm. You need new stitches. It's a small cut. It bled through 2 bandages, still attached. Her eyes lifted to mine. There was no anger there, just exhaustion and something painfully close to hope. Thank you for not making tonight worse, she said. That sentence landed strangely. Not thank you for saving the gala. Not thank you for fighting the vial. Thank you for not making it worse. That was how low the bar had become. And somehow that made me feel worse than if she had yelled. Nathan spoke from the window. One good night doesn't erase the last 6 years. Margaret glanced at him. I shook my head. He's right. Nathan looked surprised. I am? Enjoy it. Charles's face did not soften, but some of the pressure left his shoulders. Gideon stood. The boy needs rest. Boy. I was 29 in my head, but I let that go. He put a hand on Charles's shoulder. Tomorrow will be clearer. Then he looked at me. I'm glad you're safe, Lucian. Truly. I smiled back. Me too. For the smallest moment, his eyes stopped smiling. Then it was gone. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe not. That night, I did not sleep much. Lucian's memories came in ugly pieces. Parties, arguments, Dorian, Nathan pulling me out of a police station at 3 a.m. Margaret sitting outside my bedroom door after I told her I hated her. Charles giving me a car because he did not know how to give me an apology. It was a family that had failed each other in expensive rooms. Near 2 a.m, my phone lit up.
Dorian Price.
The old Lucian had called him his best friend. My new memories called him something else. A hand that always seemed to appear right before Lucian made his worst decision. Speak of the devil.
Brother. Heard tonight got messy. Private room tomorrow. Same place. Let's fix this.
I stared at it. Then I smiled. There was no reason to wait for the enemy to explain himself twice. The private club called itself the Crown. It occupied the top 2 floors of a downtown tower and required 3 separate security checks before the elevator. Mine apparently did. Dorian was already waiting in a private room when I arrived the next evening. He stood when he saw me. Black hair pushed back, hazel eyes, cream jacket over a black shirt, easy smile. He crossed the room and hugged me. My body remembered the hug. That was worse than the memories. Jesus, Lucian, he stepped back and looked me over. You look almost normal. I'm sorry to disappoint you. He laughed. There it was, the old rhythm. Dorian laughed, Lucian relaxed, and then something terrible became a good idea. We sat. A server poured 2 drinks, amber liquor, ice, orange peel. I did not touch mine. Dorian did not notice at first. Serena is telling everyone she was used, he said. The bartender is a disaster. Whole thing makes you look like a victim. Might actually help your image. Tragic. Come on, you hate sympathy. I hate prison more. Dorian smiled, but his gaze sharpened. Nathan put you up to this new act? What act? Calm Lucian, responsible Lucian. Lucian who doesn't throw a chair when someone touches his girl. Claire Bennett, the heroine of the original story. The woman old Lucian was supposed to become obsessed with, because Nathan wanted her. There was the first hook. I lifted my glass. The world faded. If I drank, my tongue went numb. I woke on a sofa, with Dorian holding my unlocked phone, while someone photographed pills beside my hand.
Outcome. Drugged and framed.
The vision snapped away. I lowered the glass without drinking. Interesting. Dorian kept talking. Claire was asking Nathan about the gala. You know that, right? No. They've been talking a lot. Good for them. He paused. Good for them? Claire can talk to whoever she wants. Dorian leaned back. You used to say you'd rather burn the company than watch him get everything. I remembered saying it. I also remembered Dorian being the one who asked the question that led there. People say dramatic things when they're drunk. You weren't that drunk. Then I was dramatic sober. Worse. His smile thinned. He pushed a slim folder across the table. Maybe this helps your memory. I opened it. Internal Blackwood Group numbers, draft terms for a planned company purchase. The old Lucian would have seen proof that Nathan was moving money without him. The new me saw bait. Where did you get this? Friend. Which friend? The kind who knows your brother is preparing to cut you out. I looked at the folder, then at Dorian. If I accuse him now? He laughed and left. No call. If I threatened to tell Nathan? He destroyed his second phone in the bathroom. If I pretend to believe him? He relaxed. Nothing useful. I needed the line that made him scared. One clear choice. If I say someone above you is getting nervous? Dorian went still.
Outcome. Target calls.
The pressure behind my eyes sharpened. There. I closed the folder. You know what I think? Dorian smiled again. Always. I think someone above you is getting nervous. Silence. Tiny. Maybe half a second. But I saw it. His thumb stopped against his glass. Above me? You've always been good at making me angry, Dorian, but tonight you're trying too hard. I stood. Tell whoever you're reporting to that the next trap needs to be better. The smile vanished. Completely this time. Lucian. I picked up my untouched drink. Then I swapped it with his. Slowly. Without looking away. Dorian looked at the glass. then at me. He did not touch either one. That was answer enough. Have a good night. I walked out. My pulse stayed normal until the elevator doors closed. I leaned against the wall. Too many social futures in a short time. Short physical choices were easy. People were messy. Still worth it. My phone vibrated before I reached the lobby. A single text came from Mara, the private investigator I had hired that morning, through one of Lucian's old lawyers.
Call made. Burner called a private Blackwood group line. Owner hidden.
I stared at the message. Blackwood Group. Not some random rival. Inside, I should have felt worse. Instead, I felt the board getting smaller. That was progress. The next morning, I walked into Charles's breakfast room and found Evelyn Laurent sitting beside my mother. That was concerning for several reasons. The largest one was the diamond ring sitting in a black velvet box between them. I stopped in the doorway. No. Evelyn looked up from her coffee. Good morning to you too. Margaret gave me a careful smile. Charles sat at the head of the table. Nathan was on his right. A man I recognized as Roland Laurent, Evelyn's father, sat across from him. So this was not breakfast. Both fathers were here for a reason. I took the empty seat beside Evelyn. Roland folded his hands. Because our families have a public problem. Then buy a newspaper. Evelyn took one slow sip of coffee. Strong start. Roland ignored both of us. The Gala had hit Laurent Capital too. Evelyn had been seen following me onto the balcony. Photos of us speaking privately were everywhere. Markets were stupid, social media was worse, and apparently wealthy families still solved rumors the way medieval kingdoms solved border disputes, with marriage. Temporary engagement, Charles said. I looked at him. How temporary? 6 months, Roland said. Publicly united families. Privately, no obligation beyond agreed events. Evelyn set her cup down. I already told my father I will not become a shield he places in front of bad press. And I told you this is larger than bad press, Roland said. Then, she looked at me. But somebody just tried to destroy Lucian in public. If that person is using both families, I want to know what happens next. I'll agree only if I stay involved, and I can walk away. There it was. She was not accepting because her father told her to. She wanted access to the same enemy I did. I looked at the ring. If I refuse, the future came hard and cold. Rain. Black umbrellas. A coffin covered in white flowers. Evelyn's photograph beside it. 6 months older. Dead. My breath stopped. The vision vanished. The room returned. Evelyn was watching me. You went pale. Bad coffee. You haven't touched it. Damn. I looked at the ring again. If I accept? A different image. Morning sunlight. My apartment, though I did not recognize it yet. Evelyn stood barefoot in the kitchen, wearing a white shirt that was very clearly mine. Her hair was messy. She was making coffee. She turned toward me with a look of deep annoyance. If you leave your watch in the sink again, I'm selling it. The image vanished. I stared at the velvet box. That future had a lot less funeral in it. Fine, I said. Everyone looked at me. Evelyn narrowed her eyes. Fine. Temporary. Either of us can leave. You keep your own schedule, and nobody gets to use this engagement to force you into a business decision. If you want out, say it. Roland opened his mouth. Evelyn spoke first. 30 days notice. 10. 20. 15. She held out her hand. Done. I shook it. Her palm was cool. The photographer arrived an hour later. Of course there was a photographer. Apparently fake love required excellent lighting. Evelyn changed into a cream dress. I wore a charcoal suit. We stood in the estate library while a PR woman told us to look comfortable. That was a cruel request. The ring was platinum with a single large diamond. Clean, expensive, easy to recognize in every photograph. I took Evelyn's left hand. For a second, the room became too quiet. Not outcome sight, just attention. Her fingers rested in mine. I slid the ring slowly into place. Evelyn's eyes stayed on my face. You look pleased, she murmured without moving her smile. I'm looking at you, not the ring. Her expression did not change for the camera, but color touched the top of one cheek. Careful, Lucian. That almost sounded smooth. Almost? Don't ruin it. The camera flashed. When the photographer asked me to put an arm around her waist, I paused. Not because I needed the power. Evelyn had already told me not to make choices for her. I looked at her. Okay? Her eyes softened by a degree. Yes. My hand settled at her waist. Warm through the fabric. She stepped closer for the picture. The scent from the balcony returned. Cedar. Flowers. Her. For one strange second, I forgot the cameras. Then she leaned close enough that only I could hear her. If this gets you killed, I'm going to be extremely annoyed. I looked down at her. That would be difficult for me too. The photographer nearly melted from happiness. He probably thought we were flirting for the press. I was no longer completely sure we were not. Later that afternoon, after the Laurent family left, I went looking for Charles. The engagement solved a public problem. It did not explain why someone was suddenly willing to drug me, frame me, and risk a direct link into Blackwood Group. Pressure usually had a clock. I wanted mine. Charles was in his study. The room smelled of leather and old paper. A wall of windows looked over the estate gardens. He was reading something on a tablet when I entered. He did not invite me to sit. What is it? 3 possible approaches came to mind. Demand the truth about my parents. Outcome, Charles shut down and called Nathan. Accuse him of hiding money. Outcome, argument. I tested the direct question. If I ask what happens when I turn 25. Charles went completely still. Then he opened the safe.
Outcome. Records. Opened.
I sat across from him. What happens when I turn 25? His tablet stopped moving. For several seconds he did not speak. Then he set it down. Who told you? That answer usually means something happens. His eyes hardened. I stayed quiet. The old Lucian would have filled silence with anger. I had discovered silence was cheaper. Charles finally stood and crossed to a painting near the bookcase. Behind it was a safe. He entered a code and removed a thick file. He placed it on the desk between us. Your biological father was Elias Vale. The last name stopped me. Vale? Same surname as Gideon, but no blood relation. Charles gave me that answer too quickly. Charles continued. Elias and I built the earliest part of Blackwood Group together. Your mother died the following year. Margaret and I became your guardians. We adopted you legally when you were 8. I opened the file. Trust documents, share records, old photographs. One page had a date highlighted. My 25th birthday. 63 days away. Elias held 12% of Blackwood Group, Charles said. The shares were placed in trust for you. Full voting control transfers when you turn 25. I looked up. 12%. Nathan's family branch controlled more, but 12% was enough to decide major votes if the board split. Enough to make me dangerous. Enough to make a ruined, criminal, unstable Lucian much easier to control than a calm one. The last week rearranged itself in my head. The Gala, the planted drugs, the protected company line, Dorian pushing inheritance. Why didn't you tell me? Charles's face closed. Because every time inheritance came up, you became worse. That was not the whole truth, but it was part of it. I could feel Lucian's old resentment rising from memory. Charity case, not really a son, waiting to be cut out. Dorian had fed those fears for years, maybe because he knew what was waiting at 25. I pulled my phone out and opened the Notes app.
63 days.
Charles watched me. What are you doing? Putting a number on it. And what exactly is the problem? I looked at him. Someone needs me broken before my birthday. For the first time since I met him, Charles Blackwood looked afraid. The next 3 days changed the estate in small ways. Security doubled. Nathan stopped treating every question I asked like the first step of a robbery. Margaret started leaving breakfast on the terrace because she noticed I ate more when nobody watched me. Chloe still insulted me, but now the insults arrived beside screenshots of rumors before they went public. Evelyn came by twice for fake engagement planning. Both times the paperwork ended before the conversation did. Dorian sent no messages. That worried me more than the messages had. On the 4th afternoon, Mara Voss called. I found the bartender's old co-worker, she said. Name's Martin Hale. He saw Dorian meet the bartender 3 days before the gala. He also saw someone from Blackwood Security pick Dorian up afterward. Will Martin talk? To you. Not police. He's scared. Where? Grand Meridian Hotel. Underground garage. 8 tonight. Across the estate library, Evelyn sat on the sofa with a tablet on one knee, reviewing questions for our first joint interview. She looked up before I said anything. That expression means trouble. I have an expression for trouble? You stop pretending to be bored. I hated how quickly she was learning me. I told her about Martin. Her first answer was exactly what I expected. I'm coming. No, she set the tablet down. There's a reason the witness is hiding in a garage. And there's a reason I'm part of this now. You are part of the public story. That doesn't mean you need to stand beside me when somebody starts shooting. Her eyes cooled. You don't get to decide I am useful when cameras are present and too fragile when danger is real. That landed cleanly. I could ask Outcome Site whether taking her was safer. I almost did. Then I stopped. This was not a 3-second knife attack. She had time to choose. Fine, I said. But if I tell you to move, Move first and argue later. If bullets are already flying, agreed. Comforting. You wanted honesty. At 7:40, our car left the estate. Not heavy yet, but enough to turn the city windows into streaks of light. Evelyn sat beside me in a dark coat over a black dress. No gala jewelry, hair tied back, practical shoes. She noticed me noticing. What? You look prepared. Were you expecting heels? I was expecting you to argue in heels. I can do both. Fair. Halfway downtown, a black sedan appeared 2 cars behind us. It stayed there through 3 turns. My neck tightened. If I tell the driver to stop and confront them? The sedan made a hard turn and disappeared. If I ignore it? A camera lens from the passenger window. Photos of Evelyn and me entering the Grand Meridian together. Then another car arriving 10 minutes later. Martin's face showed clearly in the photos. Bad. Take the next right. Then, circle the block twice. Our driver glanced at me in the mirror. Sir? Just do it. Evelyn watched my face. We're being followed. Not a question. Yes. How sure? Enough. I pulled out my phone and called Mara. Change. Martin enters through the hotel laundry entrance. We use the restaurant entrance. Send one of your people through the front in a coat like mine. You have a tail? Yes. How did you? Later. We fed the sedan the picture it expected and kept Martin out of it. 20 minutes later, the sedan photographed Mara's man entering through the front, while Evelyn and I went through a side restaurant connected to the hotel. Outcome site gave me the last turn through the kitchen and kept us out of every camera angle the tail expected. Martin waited inside a parked van on level B3. He was 40, thin, nervous, wearing a cheap rain jacket, and chewing the inside of his cheek. He looked at me, then Evelyn. I said one person. She's with me. Evelyn held up both hands. I don't work for Blackwood Group. That doesn't make me feel better. Fair. Martin looked toward the garage entrance again. I skipped everything else and asked what mattered. Dorian paid the bartender? Cash first. Then another payment to Michelle Company. I only know because Ben bragged. Said he was finally getting out of debt. Who picked Dorian up? Martin swallowed. Blackwood security SUV. Old model. Driver wore company pins. Did you see his face? Before I could take it, the world dimmed. My hand was already moving, so I asked the smallest question I could. If I reach for the paper now? The van window burst beside Evelyn's head. A man came around the concrete pillar with a knife. I snapped back. Down. I grabbed Evelyn by the shoulder and pulled her behind the van. A tire iron punched through the side window where her temple had been a second earlier. Martin yelled. 4 men moved into view. 1 from the ramp. 2 between the parked cars. 1 behind us near the stairwell. Dark clothes. Gloves. No masks. They did not expect witnesses to survive long enough to identify them. The man by the ramp had a knife. Another carried a collapsible baton. The 4th was already moving toward Martin. Too many. My vision buzzed with static. Evelyn crouched beside me. Lucian, stay behind the engine block. Martin, floor. The knife man rushed first. If I step left, blade across my throat. If I step right, his wrist past my shoulder. Right. I moved. The knife cut empty air. I caught his forearm with both hands and drove it into the side mirror. Bone cracked. He screamed. I slammed his face into the van door. Blood sprayed across the glass. He dropped. The baton man was already there. If I duck, the baton hit the roof. I ducked. Metal rang above my head. I drove my elbow into his ribs. He folded enough for me to grab his coat and throw him into the first attacker. They went down together. Easy. Then the future changed. A second attacker cut in from my blind side. I had not seen him move because my first vision had ended before he changed direction. The knife opened my side. Heat came a heartbeat later. I sucked in air as the blade came away dark with blood. Evelyn shouted my name. Pain nearly broke my concentration. The garage filled with futures. Step back. Baton to the knee. Grab knife wrist. 3rd man from the left. Turn. Martin gets pulled from the van. Static scratched across everything. Too many people moving. Too many choices changing each other. Long previews were useless, so I made the question smaller. Half a second. If I move my head left, fist misses. Left. If I kick now, knee collapses. Kick. If I grab the baton, clean. Grab. The world stopped being one huge fight. It became a line of tiny doors. I did not need the whole future. I needed the next half second. Once I understood that, the balance changed. I was bleeding and outnumbered, but every man in front of me was already late. The man who cut me swung again. I moved before his shoulder finished turning. The blade passed my chest. I smashed the stolen baton into his forearm. Once, twice. The second hit folded his wrist at a sick angle. He screamed and dropped the knife. The third attacker reached into his jacket. Gun. My stomach dropped. If I rush him, shot in the chest. If I dive behind the pillar, Evelyn gets hit. If I hit the red alarm box, his eyes turned toward the siren. That was enough. Evelyn, red box. She grabbed the drop baton, crossed 2 steps, and smashed the emergency alarm. The siren exploded through the garage. Red lights began flashing. The gunman flinched. I moved. 3 steps. My side screamed. I hit his gun wrist with both hands and drove it against the concrete pillar. The gun fired. The shot was deafening. Concrete dust burst beside my face. I twisted his wrist until something snapped. He dropped the weapon. Evelyn kicked it under the van. The last man had Martin halfway out of the passenger door. Leave him, the gunman shouted. They were losing control. Good. The last attacker shoved Martin back inside and ran toward the ramp. The man with the broken wrist followed. The first 2 were still on the ground. One crawled. The other was not moving much. Blood had soaked through my shirt and jacket. Evelyn saw it. Her face went white. You're bleeding badly. I noticed. She caught me when my knee dipped. Her arm went around my back, careful of the cut. Martin stared at us from inside the van. How did you know? I looked at the gun under the vehicle, then at the man groaning on the concrete. The honest answer was too large for this garage. Not here. Security alarms brought hotel guards within a minute. Mara's team arrived 30 seconds after that. 1 attacker escaped. 1 was unconscious with a broken arm and several missing teeth. 1 limped away before the exits locked. The 4th stayed because the broken wrist made running difficult. His burner phone was still in his pocket. The moment we were inside Mara's safe apartment, the adrenaline left me. I almost hit the floor. Evelyn caught my arm. Bedroom, now. I can walk, then walk. I made it 4 steps before I needed her shoulder again. The safe apartment had 3 bedrooms and a plain kitchen. After the estate, it almost felt normal. Mara took Martin into the back room while one of her people called a doctor who knew how to keep quiet. Evelyn pushed me onto the edge of the bed and cut my ruined shirt open. The blade had sliced from my lower ribs toward my back. Deep enough to need stitches, not deep enough to kill me. I had seen worse futures tonight. Evelyn cleaned the blood away with wet gauze. Her hands were steady. The headache had become a hard pulse behind both eyes. Every time I closed them, I saw fragments of the garage again. Knife, gunshot, Evelyn falling in one branch I had never taken. She pressed gauze against the cut. I hissed. Sorry. You don't sound sorry. I'm very upset about hurting the billionaire. Formerly spoiled billionaire. Formerly? Don't get hopeful. She cleaned another line of blood from my stomach. I was shirtless. She was close enough that her knee rested between mine. Her hair had come loose from its tie and fell over one shoulder. Her thumb brushed uncut skin near the bandage. My attention caught on the touch for one dangerous second. Then the memory of the gunshot came back, and I watched her hands because they were steady when mine were not. You knew the first man would come from behind the pillar, she said. I said nothing. You knew when the gunman would look away. Still nothing. She tied off the first stitch. And in the car, you knew exactly what the sedan would do. I looked at her. Evelyn, I'm not asking because I think you're dangerous. Her eyes lifted to mine. I'm asking because you looked terrified before the first attack even happened. That broke something small in my defense. I looked down at the blood-dark towel beside me. I saw you die. Her hand stopped. The room became completely still. When? Before the engagement. Her face changed, but she did not move away. What do you mean saw? I could tell her everything. A dozen possible images tried to form at once. Her leaving, her staying, her crying, her kissing me. Static. Pain stabbed behind my eye. I shut it down. Not this. Not while bleeding and afraid. I can't explain all of it yet, I said. But when your father offered the engagement, I saw a future where I refused. You were dead within months. Evelyn's expression went very still. And if you accepted? I remembered bare feet, my shirt, coffee. You were alive. That's why you said yes. Partly. What was the other part? I met her eyes. I wanted you alive. No humor, no clever line, just the truth. Her fingers rested lightly against the uninjured side of my ribs. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then she returned to the stitches. I'm not going to force you to explain tonight. Thank you. But don't ever decide I'm staying home because you're afraid for me. You got attacked with a knife. So did you. I lost that argument before it started, didn't I? Yes. She finished the last stitch and placed a clean bandage over my side. Her palm stayed there 1 second longer than necessary. Warm, careful. I caught her wrist gently before she stood. She looked down at my hand. Then at me. Evelyn. I almost told her about Adrian. About the novel. About the fact that I had been in this body less than a week, and already cared whether she breathed tomorrow. Too much. Not because I did not trust her. Thank you for moving when I told you to. Her face softened. Thank you for being right. She pulled her wrist free slowly. Then she left me alone with the headache. For the first time since I woke in this world, survival no longer felt like the whole goal. The captured attacker's burner phone gave us one clean answer and one problem. He had called Dorian's private number 3 times that week. But there was still no direct line from the attackers to whoever controlled Dorian. Dorian was still the door. I needed him scared enough to open it himself. By the next morning, rumors began spreading that the garage attack had been a fight over drugs. By lunch, a bank transfer appeared online, showing money from one of my personal accounts going to Martin Hale. By dinner, an anonymous forum had screenshots of me threatening Dorian. None of it was real, all of it looked real enough. Nathan came into my study, carrying printed pages like he wanted to hit me with them. Evelyn sat by the window. She had refused to leave the estate after the attack, which meant our fake engagement was now doing a very convincing impression of a real one. Nathan dropped the papers on my desk. They're building a second case against you. I know. Then why are you doing nothing? I'm not doing nothing. Lucian, there is a bank transfer with your name on it. There are messages. There are photos of Martin getting into the same garage where men attacked you. If this reaches the board before we answer it, Father will have to investigate you in front of everyone. Good. Nathan stared at me. Good? Evelyn looked over from the window. She already knew enough to stay quiet. I turned one of the pages around. This transfer used an old account I stopped using 2 days after the gala. Nathan frowned. So? Mara marked it. Any movement gets copied to us. I pointed at the message screenshots. Those came from a clone's phone I left active on purpose. Then the photos. And Martin entered the garage through a route only 3 people knew. One of them was Dorian. Nathan slowly sat across from me. You knew this was coming. I knew something was coming. That was technically true. I had used Outcome Site the night before. If I exposed Dorian now. A hotel room. Empty drawers. A private jet leaving before dawn. The protected Blackwood number going dead.
Outcome. Handler escapes.
If I wait till the evidence reaches the board, Dorian sweating under white lights, his hand under the table, a call. Gideon Vale standing from dinner somewhere else and walking out before dessert. Not enough to stop Gideon, enough to finally prove the line. Dorian thinks the evidence is his weapon, I said. I want him confident enough to bring all of it into one room. Nathan's jaw tightened. And what if Father believes him before you finish? Then I lose. That's your plan? No, that's the risk. Nathan stood and walked to the window. For years, this man had cleaned up Lucian's disasters. Every instinct he had told him to stop me before I made another one. I understood that. I asked for one thing he could judge for himself. 24 hours, I said. Don't protect me. Don't lie for me. Just don't move first. Nathan looked back. Why? Because if we scare Dorian now, the person above him disappears. His eyes narrowed. You know there is someone above him. Yes. Who? I don't know yet. That bothered him. Good. It bothered me too. He looked at Evelyn. You believe this? She crossed one leg over the other. I believe Lucian knew about 4 armed men before I did. I believe he knew the sedan was following us before the driver did. And I believe Dorian tried to drug him at the Crown. Nathan's head snapped toward me. He what? Small detail. You didn't mention that. You were busy being worried about my public image. Nathan stared at me for 3 long seconds. You are somehow more annoying when you're calm. Chloe's voice came from the open doorway. I've been saying that for a week. None of us had heard her arrive. She held up her phone. Also, congratulations. You're trending under Blackwood drug prints again. Very retro. I looked at Nathan. 24 hours. He exhaled through his nose. If this goes wrong, I am personally locking you in the safest room in the estate. Does it have Wi-Fi? No. Cruel. He walked out. But he did not call security. He did not stop Dorian. That was the first real piece of trust Nathan had given me. I did not intend to waste it. The Blackwood Group board met the next evening on the 42nd floor of Blackwood Tower. Glass walls. Long black table. City lights below us. Before I enter, I used Outcome Site one last time. If I attacked Dorian's first lie, he stayed calm. Gideon stayed seated. If I waited until Dorian believed the room was his hand went under the table. Gideon's phone vibrated.
Outcome. Handler reacts.
That was all I needed. Charles sat at the head. Nathan sat to his right. Gideon's chair was 3 seats down. He was not there yet. Dorian stood near the presentation screen wearing a navy suit and the expression of a man who believed the ending had already been written. I sat across from him. Evelyn was not a board member, so she waited outside with Margaret and Chloe. That was probably safer. I still hated it. The meeting began with a lawyer reading the accusations. The details were long. The accusation was not. Someone wanted the board to believe I had paid Martin to lie about the gala. Someone wanted them to believe I arranged the garage violence to make myself look like a victim. And someone wanted the family to believe I had threatened Dorian when he tried to expose me. Dorian had brought proof for every part: bank records, messages, photos. A small bag of pills supposedly recovered from a car registered to me. Even a witness, a young man from one of Lucian's old party circles, sat near the door and swore he had heard me say I would burn the whole family down before my birthday. That part was probably based on something the old Lucian had actually said, which made the lie stronger. Charles listened without moving. Nathan's face gave away nothing. Gideon arrived 10 minutes late. He apologized softly, took his seat, and looked at me with sad concern. That expression almost impressed me. Almost. Dorian finished by placing the last printed transfer in front of Charles. I had spent 20 minutes letting him win, because I had already seen the moment winning would make him careless. I didn't want to do this, he said. His voice shook at exactly the right amount. Lucian was my closest friend, but after the gala, he became paranoid. He thought everyone was turning against him. He paid Martin to support his story. When I told him I wouldn't help, he threatened me. He looked at me. I'm sorry, Lucian, but somebody has to stop you before you hurt yourself again. The room went silent. For a second, I almost admired the performance. Then I remembered the drugged glass. That fixed it. Charles looked at me. Do you have anything to say? I leaned back in my chair. Yes. Dorian watched me carefully. This was the moment he expected anger. Maybe a threat. Instead, I smiled. Thank you. His expression broke. Only slightly, but enough. Nathan looked down at the table to hide something that might have been satisfaction. Charles did not move. Explain, he said. I picked up the bank record. This account was marked 4 days ago. The moment someone moved money through it, a copy went to my investigator and Nathan's security archive. Dorian's face tightened. I picked up the screenshots. These messages came from a phone I knew had been cloned. I stopped using it after the gala and left it active. Every fake message created a timestamp from the copy. Then the drug bag. The car where these were found hasn't been driven by me in 6 months. It has been in a private garage. The garage camera shows one of Dorian's people entering yesterday morning. The lawyer turned toward Dorian. Dorian lifted both hands. This proves nothing. He's had days to prepare a story. You're right, I nodded. So let's use your story. I looked at the witness near the door. You said I threatened Dorian at 11:23 on Tuesday night. The young man swallowed. Yes. Where? The Crown, private room. Good. I tapped the table. Nathan pressed a button. The screen changed. Security footage from the Crown appeared. Not from inside the private room, from the hall outside. It showed me leaving at 10:41, then Dorian leaving at 11:12. The witness was nowhere in the building. That's impossible, Dorian said. No, I said. It's inconvenient. Same word from the service corridor. This time, I enjoyed it. The lawyer began asking the witness questions. The young man broke in under a minute. Dorian's control slipped. His hand moved under the table. There. Exactly like the vision. He had not beaten outcome sight. He had walked into the future I had chosen for him. I did not look at Dorian. I looked at Gideon. Gideon's phone vibrated once against the table. His eyes dropped. Then he stood. Excuse me, I need to take this. My pulse slowed. Not faster. Slower. We had him. Not enough to arrest. Enough to stop guessing. Mara was tracing the call. Dorian's hidden phone called the same private Blackwood group line he had used from the Crown. The call forwarded to Gideon Vale's private phone. Gideon walked toward the door. Gideon? He turned with that same gentle smile. Family matter. Continue without me. Then he left. I wanted to stop him. Outcome site opened before the decision fully formed. If I accused Gideon now? Gideon denied everything. The phone disappeared. Files vanished. 3 people I did not know boarded flights before dawn. We gained 1 public fight and lost the network. If I let him walk? Gideon entered an elevator. His smile vanished the moment the doors closed. He called someone else. New doors opened. I let him walk. Dorian did not know that. He was still trying to save himself. Lucian planned this, he said. All of it. He's manipulating you. Yes, I said. The room went still again. Dorian blinked. What? I planned for you to fake the evidence. His face drained. My ribs pulled under the bandage, but I ignored it. At first, I thought about exposing you at the club, but if I moved then, you ran. The person above you disappeared, so I gave you room. I pointed at the table. You built this because I wanted you confident. Every fake transfer, every message, every witness. You thought you were putting me in a cage. I looked at the evidence spread in front of Charles. You were building one around yourself. The boardroom doors opened. 2 federal investigators entered with Blackwood security behind them. Dorian stepped back. No. One investigator held up a warrant. Dorian Price, we need your phone and access to your financial accounts. Dorian looked at Charles, then Nathan, then me. His eyes were wide now. The charm was gone. What remained was a 25-year-old man who had spent years believing somebody stronger would always clean up after him. Lucian, he said quietly, you don't understand who you're messing with. I believed him. That was the interesting part. Then Dorian's fear turned into confusion. How did you know? I stepped closer until only the table separated us. You kept showing me what you were going to do. Dorian's jaw tightened. The investigators took him by the arms. He did not fight. He just kept looking at me as they led him out. Nathan waited until the doors closed. Then he turned to me. You knew Gideon would leave. Not a question. Charles looked sharply at him. Gideon? The room changed. This was the dangerous part. Not Dorian, not the arrest. Mara's message had arrived. Confirmed. Dorian call forwarded to Gideon Vale private device. Second outgoing call after exit. Trace running. I placed the phone in front of Charles. He read it. His face went completely still. Nathan read it next. Then he sat back slowly. Uncle Gideon, he said. Charles did not answer. For the first time, the powerful man at the head of the table looked old. Dorian was finished. The frame-up was dead. The board had watched me turn an attack into proof. 58 days remained before the shares became mine, and Gideon now knew I was still standing. My family finally knew someone had been shaping Lucian's disasters from inside their own world. But the man above Dorian was not a stranger. He had eaten at our table, held Chloe as a baby, advised Nathan for years, stood beside Charles in family photos. The enemy was not outside the family anymore. He had been sitting at our table for years. We spent the next 4 hours with investigators. By the time I left Blackwood Tower, it was almost midnight. Margaret hugged me in the hall without asking first. I froze for half a second. Then I hugged her back. Chloe stood nearby with red eyes and crossed arms. Don't make this emotional, she said. Wouldn't dream of it. She stepped forward and punched my shoulder. Not hard. Also, if you ever let someone stab you again without telling us until after, I'll kill you myself. Noted. Nathan waited until Margaret and Chloe went toward the elevators. Then he faced me. I was wrong. There was no speech after it. He did not need one. You. This week. I could have made him say more. I did not. You had reasons. So did you. He held out his hand. I looked at it, then ignored it, and pulled him into a quick hug. Nathan stiffened like I had attacked him. I let go immediately. That was terrible, he said. Agreed. Never again. Good. He walked toward the elevator. His mouth was almost smiling. I found Evelyn on the roof. Of course I did. Blackwood Tower had a private rooftop garden for executives who wanted fresh air without interacting with normal sidewalks. She stood near the glass wall overlooking the city. Wind moved her auburn hair across one shoulder. She had changed out of her formal dress and into a dark coat, but she still wore the engagement ring. You won, she said, without turning. Dorian lost. That is not the same thing? Not anymore. She looked at me then. Gideon. I nodded. Gideon. She came closer. Did you know before tonight? I suspected someone inside. I didn't know who until Dorian called. And you let Gideon leave? If I stopped him, we'd get one public fight and lose the people behind him. She studied me. You do that pause before you answer sometimes. My chest tightened. What pause? Half a second, like you're listening to someone nobody else can hear. I looked out over the city. Soon, I would tell her soon. Tonight had already taken enough. You said you saw me die, she said. Yes. Did you see tonight? Parts. Did you see this? She stepped into my space. My body understood before my brain did. Outcome's sight stirred automatically. If I kiss her? The edges of the world began to lose color. I shut it down. Hard. The pressure vanished. Evelyn noticed my eyes change. You didn't look, she said. I did not ask how she knew. Maybe she had already learned more about me than I wanted to admit. No. Why not? I reached for her waist slowly. Gave her time to move. She did not. Because I spend every day choosing the safest future. My hand settled against her coat. I don't want this to be one of my calculations. Her eyes softened. There was no clever answer this time. No teasing. She put one hand against my chest, careful of my injured side. Then she kissed me. Warm, slow at first. I had spent days watching futures that could kill me. For once, I had no idea what happened next. I liked it. When she pulled back, her forehead rested lightly against mine. You really didn't look? She whispered. No. Her thumb brushed once along my jaw. Good. For several seconds, neither of us moved. The city kept shining below us, but I had stopped thinking about futures. Then, I kissed her. The next morning, Charles was waiting in my study. That alone was unusual. The envelope in his hand made it worse. Old paper, cream color, wax seal broken long ago. He placed it on my desk. This belonged to Elias, my biological father. I sat slowly. Why do you have it? Charles did not answer immediately. His face looked worse than it had in the boardroom. I opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph. 4 younger men stood in front of an old factory building. Charles, Elias, Gideon, and Roland Laurent, Evelyn's father. My stomach tightened. I turned the photograph over. 6 words were written across the back, in faded black ink.
If I die, don't trust Charles.
For several seconds, I heard nothing. Not the air system, not the garden outside, not even my own breathing. I looked up. Charles had gone pale. Outcome sight stirred. If I accuse him? I stopped it before the vision formed. Not yet. This answer needed more than a single branch. I was hoping, Charles said quietly, you would never find that. A week ago, I had wanted one thing from this life. Stay rich, stay alive, stay away from the plot. Now Dorian was in custody. Gideon Vale knew I was coming for him. My fake fiancé had kissed me like the word fake was becoming difficult to defend. My family was finally starting to feel like mine. The father who had just begun trusting me stood across the desk. In his hand was a secret from a dead man who had warned me not to trust him. I looked down at the photograph again. I stared at the warning again. A week ago, all I wanted was to survive a story that had already decided I was the villain. Now I knew somebody had spent years making sure Lucian became exactly that. I could not erase the damage he had done. But I could choose what happened next. And the people who had written Lucian Blackwood's bad ending were about to discover what it felt like when I chose theirs.